G'day, Tom. How are you, mate?
Hello, how are you?
Good, good.
It's what? It's morning there?
It is, mate. Yeah, 9 a.m. So up bright and early for these sort of things, especially on a Sunday.
Yeah, I still gotta work out. I have to work out, so it's like you're 12 hours, 12 hours ahead of New York, which is 3 hours ahead of me. So I always have to like do that mental gymnastics to try to figure out what time it is.
Yeah, especially, like Australia, multiple time zones. You guys have got multiple time zones. And then you get into the daylight saving stuff.
Yeah,
And
do you have daylight savings?
no, not where I'm in Queensland, which is good. We don't have to
Yeah,
change our
well,
clocks.
that makes sense because you don't have the big shifts in the sun being that close to the equator, right?
No, that's exactly right. Where in winter the sun might set where I am because I live behind a big mountain. The sun sets behind the mountain, so roughly around about that 5:30 p.m. in the winter,
Mm-hmm.
and then just the way the sun travels in the summer, our sun will set roughly around about 7 p.m. So we don't need daylight savings. So tell me about yourself. Like, tell me about Moondog and how did that come about?
Oh, well, so my background is in communications, advertising, and design. So the name Moondog actually is a nickname that was coined by my writing partner, one of my writing partners when I was working at an ad agency. And I'm one of those. I'm literally a Madison Avenue ad guy, or at least I was. I worked in New York City for over 20 years in total, do two different stints in New York City. And I worked for a number of the big Madison Avenue advertising firms. So usually when you work as a creative, the creative team, they usually pair up a designer, which they call an art director, with a copywriter. And I've worked in both roles, but one of my longtime writing partners, he was a jazz musician by training, by education, and he started calling me Moondog, which is a variation on my last name, and then that eventually started calling me Moondog from Moondog. And
Right.
so if you look this up, if you Google it, if you Google Moondog, 9 times out of 10, this blind jazz composer from the 1950s will come up. He was a guy named Moondog. At least that was his stage name, or at least his entertainment name. I don't actually remember his birth name, but
Right.
he was literally a blind performer in New York City in the 50s, and he was famous as the Viking of 6th Avenue, I believe. He would wear an operatic Vikings helmet, the one with the horns. Yeah. And perform on the street in the 50s. And there's albums. There's Moondog albums. So that's where I got the nickname Moondog. And I started using it when I was playing airsoft for a couple of years. And so I have all of my gear with name tags that says Moondog. And when I started doing YouTube, I just continued using that name since a lot of people knew me as Moondog from my from back in my airsoft days and my airsoft videos.
Yeah, nice. I just had a quick Google of that Moondog, and yeah, he's certainly a interesting looking character. It's the spiked horns and the big grey beard, and
yeah, you should share. Hit that. I don't know if you can in the brand button. Hit that or at the bottom. So actually, not the brand button, at the very bottom where it says present. Or I could bring it up. I think.
Yep. See if we can do it. We got to learn how to do these things.
And I might inadvertently disconnect myself because now it's saying I need to connect to YouTube.
Hang on
on my screen. So
there we go. I've got it. There we go.
All right. So yeah, that's him.
Yeah.
That's Moondog. He's an interesting cat. That's for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Certainly interesting name, and certainly interesting, sort of character, and certainly interesting nickname. Because I'm sure, you get that question, a fair bit of like, who is this guy and all that sort of stuff.
Either that or they think that I'm a real big fan of Gidget, because apparently there was a character in the movies that was named Moondoggy. He's a surfer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Because in some of your streams, I love the history and some of the things that you talk about. I find it really fascinating.
It's part of my personality. I always find interest. There's a lot I get into just random things, and it served me well in advertising because I have to delve into the mindset of the audience in whatever product I had to make commercials for. So whether it's tires or train travel or Irish tourism. I was the one of the creatives for a while on Irish tourism, and of course, obviously, my heritage is Irish, as you can tell. So yeah, I had to get into the mindset of somebody who wants to wants to travel to Ireland. So yeah, a lot of things like I had to get into really quickly.
So with your background with advertising and everything like that, obviously that you can use that with YouTube. How does that cross over?
It made it an easy crossover because I was familiar with camera work, and usually I didn't do the camera work. I usually hired directors, and they in turn hired camera people to create commercials. But I was familiar with the whole process, and I was very particular in terms of how things should look like. And I mean, that was part of my job. So the learning process, and I'm sure it is for you and just every other creator, is learning how to use the equipment. Because I knew how to use a camera, granted, and I knew how to use a phone, which, right? Yep. But in terms of putting that all together, like everybody else who gets into this, you learn by doing. So, I did have a little bit of a leg up just because I knew I had in my mind how I wanted things to look. It was just a process of learning how to use the tools like editing software and lavalier mics and setting up a studio at home, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it certainly is an intimidating process, and
and expensive.
Yeah, yeah. Like the amount of items that are sitting in my cupboard that I thought it was a great idea, and it just doesn't work, or it just, the list goes on and on and on.
And plus, it may work for somebody else, but then when you try it out, it's like, this doesn't quite work out for me. Yeah.
Because one of the questions we had in one of my last streams with Cyclops Joe was somebody asked what editing software they use. So what do you use?
I use Final Cut Pro. For my creative work, I'm pretty much in the Mac ecosystem, even though I'm an Android phone user, and I grew up working, programming in DOS and BASIC on So.
Oh.
Yeah, I was kind of forced into using Apple products for my job, but yeah, I use Final Cut Pro. But with the first videos I ever did back when I had was posting things up for Airsoft, I would just use iMovie, because I didn't want to spend the money for what was just like a fun little side project, or side thing when I was working full time. But as I was seeing the need to, actually, I would have probably bought it for doing YouTube for sure, Final Cut Pro, but I was starting to do some more freelance work in advertising, and when I wanted to edit broadcast commercials, iMovie wasn't quite up to the task, so I did have to pony up for that software. But also for those of you who are new or are budding or just getting into creative content who are watching this, you don't need to pay a lot of money or buy a lot of equipment. I mean, a lot of the footage, half the footage I use or in my videos, I take with my phone. Well, I got a couple of phones, but I use CapCut, which is a free software that works on the phone. So yeah, you don't have to pay $1,000 for software if you just learn how to use the free tools that are out there.
Yeah, exactly right. There is a ton of free tools out there, and the phones these days are that good. Like I remember back in 2020, further back 2010, those sort of eras, 2000s. Like a 5 megapixel camera was at least $200, $300, $400, and it was massively expensive. And now your phone rivals most cameras just off the shelf.
Absolutely, in some cases even better in terms of the footage you're actually getting.
Yeah, well, like most of them, they shoot 4K, pretty much all auto balanced and everything like that. So there's certainly plug and play. And for me, I'm an Android fanboy, simply because you can just plug your phone in, put it into your computer, and it's done. Like I transferred away from Apple simply because I just found it very clunky to try to move the videos and audio and everything like that.
Really?
But I haven't been with Apple for many years, so it could have changed and everything like that. Especially when you're trying to deal with the old iTunes and those sort of softwares.
Oh yeah. Good. Because they kind of lock out a lot of the usage. In some ways good, because you could find yourself in trouble if you were using some of the music that when I first got into it, I was using music that was in my library, and of course I didn't have the rights to it. So yeah.
G'day, Long Rifle, how are you? Was it Clip Champ and a couple of old cell phones? Yeah. Have you heard of that software?
No. But is that for, I wonder if I have to look that up. Yeah, whatever you can use for phones. I remember just thinking back in the day, before iMovie, we would actually do some really kludgy edits with QuickTime. We would just cut and paste.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't do any linear stuff where you can, swap things around, but you could at least get clips. Yeah. But for those of us who are old enough to remember putting together mixtapes, it's not that much different.
Trying to record it off the radio, and then you got some guy yabby, like, just be quiet. Good. Have you shot any phones yet?
No, but yeah, a couple of times I worried about it. Certainly, I try to use. I don't use the phones for target cams. I've been using a body cam actually that I reviewed a few years back. So it's a nice small, about the size of a DJI Action. It's a small like action cam, and I clip that on. I figure it's certainly not going to survive a 22 hit, but at least I won't cry like I've shot my phone.
I tried to dabble with GoPros, but I know you're familiar with where I'm from, and I want to talk about that so we can talk about some of the areas. But GoPros simply don't survive here. It's just way too hot, and
right, the overheating issue
down on the range, and there's 32 degree heat, and GoPros just overheat, and you can never get them to record. That's why I've had to change to the trigger cam.
Oh, right. Yeah. And that's made in South Africa. Is that right?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So they know about heat. At least I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I haven't had any issues with, like, I've had the trigger cam. I'd like to say I've been using it for about 7 months now, and it's got some good elements and got some bad elements. And, but as far as the footage is really good. I haven't had any heating problems. It is a little bit clunky with the application syncing up. Sometimes it loses sync. Sometimes the unit gets a little bit confused if you turn the camera off via the app. The camera then doesn't recognize that, and it sort of locks itself, and you have to sit there and hold the power button to do a hard reset. For then the camera to then reboot itself. So I've had to. There's a few little workarounds with that. And g'day, KY. I was just about to mention you. He's got a new scope camera as well, and it just for the life. I was looking at it last night, and the name has escaped me. But KY, if you can just put that in the comments, your new scope camera. It looks really good, like one of the new sort of cameras, and the quality looks good. And hopefully that they have a decent mounting system. Because I noticed also when you put the scope camera on, yeah, there you go, Scope Mate.
Scope Mate. I got to look that up.
Yeah, there seemed to be a new scope company from America. But yeah, with my scope and the true cam at the moment, when you tighten up that grub screw to be able to keep it on there, the camera actually sort of tilts itself down, which just throws the image off on the scope.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not sure what happened to either the mounting ring has stretched or something like that, or the plastic, because you have plastic sleeves as well, whether that has changed over time. But I've had to put a couple of shims into it as well. It looks dodgy. It looks really, really dodgy. But just trying to stop that from keep the camera looking down the scope square. I don't know. I don't know if it's just it's a me thing or if it's a camera thing. But before, I never had that problem.
Well, have you been contacting the scope company? I mean, the camera company about and taking documenting the issues? Because I'm guessing that they're not a big company, so a lot of there's probably not as much testing going on with them other than just sort of when they're using it to develop the products.
Yeah, unfortunately not. That is one of the points that have been noticed in their reviews, is their communication with customers is not the best.
See, that's unfortunate, because from a company standpoint, they're really missing out on a huge resource, because that's R&D right there. If you could get a hold of your customers and find out their problems, you can make improvements, because that way you're getting a lot of feedback. But if they're either not available or don't have the bandwidth to handle that, yeah, that kind of sucks.
Especially $1,000 camera.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a little bit more better quality. The glass on it is fantastic, very clear. It's not dark, because I noticed. I watched. I think it's Wombat. The 22 PRS shooter. He did a review on the Scope Mate and the Trigger Cam, and that was one of the factors of Scope Mate, is that the front glass was very dark.
Better than the Trigger Cam.
No. It was worse than the Trigger Cam.
Oh, was it?
But then he worked with Scope Mate, and they released another version with a lot more clearer glass. And he said it's pretty much the same, like same quality, same, very clear. Hopefully, that is something that Scope Mate will continue. And it's a lot cheaper as well, because in conversion, it's roughly around about $800 Australian for the Scope Mate compared to the $1,000 Trigger Cam.
Yeah. And that you have to buy the camera separately, right? For the Trigger Cam?
No, it's all one unit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It comes in a box, and you just pretty much slide it straight onto your scope. There's a plastic sort of sleeve that you got to put around your scope, and it just slides straight on. Then you tighten up the grub screw. Very easy to put on once you get it the right sleeve size and everything like that. Because as you know, different scopes have different diameters and stuff like that. So, what do we got? KY. What has he got? He likes it, but it hasn't given me a full video yet. It kicks itself off. The quality isn't great though. Oh, okay.
Oh, by kicking off, do you mean it loosens itself when you're firing it? Is that what you mean there, KY Kentucky? I'll wait for his reply on that. That's one of the reasons you seldom will see me do firing footage, just because I haven't found a on-scope camera that I wanted enough to buy. Well, I'm glad that at least you did. That one of the things I was concerned with is some of the scopes that have the illuminator on the eyepiece. I was worried about if that would get in the way of a eyepiece mounted camera. And it also, you kind of have to throw that all out the window if you want to try to review some spotting scopes, because their eyepieces are huge. Right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. And that the scope cam probably wouldn't fit on those ones.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you saying Kentucky was saying no? It shuts itself off. That's a problem.
Yeah, that is a huge problem. Is it because of heating, or what? Wonder what would be causing it to turn itself off?
Long rifle. So anything you tighten down in the diopter of either a rifle scope or spotter is eventually going to start to loosen. That's true, especially with even with 22s, and you get outer aberration on the image.
Yeah, I'm definitely experiencing that, and again, I don't know whether the screw is broken, or the ring is broken, or the plastic itself, the plastic sleeve. It does get a little bit of a crush. To be able to get that spotting scope on not the spotting scope, the trigger cam on there tight. Hence why I'm trying to use a piece of Coke can as a bit of a shim to try to fill up that gap. So what actually got you into shooting?
Oh, I've been shooting some things BB guns since I was a kid, in the backyard. So
Yep.
I always enjoyed shooting sports when I was younger, and got into shooting probably in my early teens. Was taught by my uncle to shoot, and started with I think he had a 10-22 at the time, but he also had me shoot his 45 1911 and an Uzi. So yeah, it wasn't a full auto Uzi. You couldn't get those in California. But this was back in California. If you probably have learned from the zeitgeist, is one of the most restrictive states in the United States. But compared to the restrictions of Australia, probably still a little looser now than. But back when I was growing up, it was a lot less restrictive in California. People I remember people could open carry when I was a kid, and just was a different landscape. But so I was shooting pretty much all through into my 20s. But then when I moved to New York, that was you have to have a license to own a firearm in New York City. So I stopped doing that and got into airsoft just to be able to shoot. To buy things and shoot things. And then when I moved back to California about 10 years ago, I got back into shooting sports.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Hey, George, how are you? Yeah, the Tacticam, but the glare in the eyepiece was just too much to deal with, and I had to put a towel over his head. That's what Wombat said in his review as well, that the Tacticam, the glare was absolutely ridiculous. That's why I was looking at the scope, mate, and the trigger cam, simply because of the glare.
I'm surprised. So you're getting a lot of light bleed even through the housing from that glare if it's coming from the outside. I haven't used the Tacticam, so I don't know all its sort of drawbacks, but other than I was kind of concerned about fitting all the scopes that I needed to review.
Yeah, right. Yeah, KY, he thinks it's more for hunting application, not 15-minute shooting videos. He's just learning it. Yeah, any sort of technology or cameras is always a learning curve. 8-minute loops. Oh, that's kind of disappointing.
Yeah. Though I suppose it kind of makes you be a little more efficient with with talking while you're reviewing things, because you don't want to create like a 20-minute video of a review. So
what other what would be a standard match length, like a ARA target or something?
Yeah, so that's a good point. You would need a longer to film an entire match, though. I suppose you just have to stop and start every time that you'd change your magazine, maybe. But this still gets kind of old fast, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah. Like our matches, depending on what we're doing. But yesterday we did groups, and you have to shoot 5 targets, and each time you shoot for your first target is 10 minutes. The next target is 7, 7, 7, 7. So you've got that time to be able to stop and wait. So I don't know, like maybe he could stop it every time or everything like that. But I agree, like changing and stopping, that just gets annoying.
Yeah. Plus, you've got so many other things to have your mind on when you're actually in a match, right? Rather than having to fiddle around with your camera.
Yeah. Good evening. Oh, good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. I don't understand. Well, to Jim, how are you, mate? Is USBR 20 minutes? Yeah. Some of one of our matches, the what we call it IRB, but exactly the same as ARA. They're 20 minutes long.
Yeah, the Benchrest rimfire matches are about 20 minutes long at my range, though most folks get through their their target sooner than that. But yeah, I totally understand the need to have. It would be nice to have an uninterrupted flow of footage. Yeah.
Yeah, some people are just machine guns on the line. They've got their full 20 minutes, and you see them packing up after 2 minutes. You're like, what? What happened? I wanted to, like, one thing I wanted to ask you is, you've actually been to where I live, and you've done some scuba diving before. I want to tell me
Oh
about
yes,
that.
yeah.
What's that journey like?
So I've been to Cairns twice. The first time was in '96, and I happened to actually I think it was 90, 90 oh 94, 90. It was before 96. I'm sorry. It was like 94 or 95. And I had an opportunity to travel to Australia on vacation. And part of it was to visit some girls I met while I was backpacking in college.
Yeah, it's a great place for that.
Yeah. I got to meet up one of them was working in Sydney at the time, so I got to have dinner with her there, and another girl was in Perth. So a whole other side of the country from where you are. And
Yep.
for those of you who don't know, Australia is a big country, folks. It's about the size of the continental US. So it's not a small country to go from one end to the other. So
No, massive.
and a lot of folks even in Eastern Australia, where the majority of the population are, seldom go to the West Coast, right? Yeah.
That's correct. I've never been on the west side. Never.
So it was very uncommon for when I tell folks that I traveled to Australia, where'd you go? Perth. Like, what? They usually do a double take. But I did go to Perth. But then I'd heard from folks that you could get a PADI license within a weekend if you did everything right. And I was there. I was thinking, hey, when's the next time I'm going to be in Australia? I'll be kicking myself for the rest of my life if I don't dive the Barrier Reef. So I hopped on a plane, went up to Cairns, and got certified in the Barrier Reef in the 90s. And when I got married, my wife, I were tossing around ideas of where to go, and I said, "Well, we could go to Australia," and she was game for it, and we went to Cairns again because I wanted to get her certified. But it turns out she couldn't get certified. We didn't know this, but if you're diabetic, if you have diabetes, you can't.
Yeah, right.
So because the doctors who have to sign off on it are concerned that people who have type 1 diabetes, that you can get low blood sugar and black out. So that's the reason why they won't certify you, or at least in Cairns, the doctor there who had to sign off on the trip before we went on wouldn't sign off on her. But it was fine. We still went off on to the reef, and we also went up to Daintree, spent overnight up there in the rainforest. That was amazing.
Cape Tribulation.
Yeah, Cape Trib.
Yep. Amazing place. The whitest sands I've ever seen. And
I never realized how loud the rainforest is at night. Everybody thinks it's so placid and picturesque you have in your mind, and you realize all these animals are just howling and just cacophony of noise at night.
Did you ever get chased around by one of these big chickens?
No, thankfully. No. But we saw it I think it was at somebody's farm that they stopped at, and those are vicious, right?
Oh, very.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. These things are absolutely wild.
It's like a dinosaur. It totally is a dinosaur.
They are, and I seen one the other day. Because I don't know if you remember, but you have to drive up the mountain to Kuranda and those sort of places, and there's always a few cassowaries that are walking along the road. And
no way.
The other day, this bird tried to attack a car. Like, these things are massive. Like, for people that don't know what these things are absolutely massive birds. And the claws there will absolutely, you wouldn't want to get kicked by one of them. Not a chance.
Yeah, I've heard stories that they've gutted people. They've opened, just because of the claws on there. Yeah. And even and they're pretty bold, right?
Oh yeah. They're not shy at all. You know, especially if they've got the males have got their chicks with them, because the mother sort of just lays the eggs and then buggers off, where the male then looks after the babies. So especially if there's babies running around, they're very territorial. There are a couple of birds that are around that are very friendly. Down south of where I am, uh, um, um, oh, Mission Beach and those sort of places. There's actually a local bird that comes along, and you can eat it eats the bits of fruit off the table, and it's quite social. But that one up on the mountain now, I wouldn't want to get out of the car with him. He's a bit grumpy, that one.
Yeah, they're definitely scary looking.
Jim, thank you very much for your question. He'd like a rear peep sight for his where at? I can't pronounce that. HW30 rifle I use for his indoor shooting, max of 25 meters. So, what do you think, Tom?
I've been never even I'm not even familiar with what is it, the Virak rifle for indoor shooting. Yeah, so no suggestion for you, but I got to look that up. Virak.
G'day, Boom. How are you, mate? Yeah, I've have not come across that particular brand at all, because I thought maybe there's that many different brands out there, and it's a little bit hard to keep a track of all of them, I guess.
Yeah.
What would be some of your favorite peep sites, I guess?
I don't have a specific brand on peep sights. I just whatever, because I've never bought an aftermarket peep sight for my rifles, other than the ones that it either came with originally. Yeah. And of the rifles I have, let's say I took it off of. I tried the peep sight on the Ruger 1022. Wasn't particularly fond of it. The leaf sight's not great, but at least I was used to shooting that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Jim says it's a German air gun, break barrel, and 11 mil dovetail, he thinks.
I see. Fuck. That looks nice. I just Googled that. Is that similar to the Diana? I'm guessing. Interesting.
Maybe that's potentially a video for your channel.
I have to. I'll probably. I don't know how easy it would be to get. Is it? If I'm pronouncing it right, either it is the Weihrauch. So it's WEI apparently.
Oh, okay. There you go. So obviously you do a lot of equipment reviews and things like that. What would be your favorite piece of equipment?
It's kind of like the story of the guy who has a ceramic frog collection. It's that once somebody sees a ceramic frog on their desk, they keep on giving them ceramic frogs because they think they're into it. Now, yeah, I end up doing a lot of scope reviews, and I hadn't really intended to be a scope guy necessarily, and I don't claim to have as much experience with high end scopes, like say Dark Lord of Optics or any of those guys who are real experts in the matter. I just started reviewing the scopes that I had and or scopes that I wish I had that I would borrow from other friends over at the range at the rifle club I had. And then when I talked I visited SHOT Show for the first time. I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago. And so I just stopped in at the scope companies and wanted to see what they had. And then they asked me to start reviewing some of their scopes. So that's what I got into. But in terms of what I prefer to review, honestly, I don't have a preference. I end up doing a lot of scope reviews, and I started off doing ammo reviews actually of 22s, and not not a lot of the match grade ammo, because at the time we were in the middle of the pandemic, so you couldn't really order ammo anywhere because it was non-existent. So I was just reviewing which of the cheap box ammo that I could randomly find at my local gun store would actually function or shoot reasonably well in the rifle that I had. So that's where I started doing that.
So what was the result of that?
The results were CCI minimags tended to be the best overall in terms of function, and a lot of the pistols and the rifles, and generally grouped all pretty well. But for the cost, from a cost per round basis, Aguila was a much better deal. Didn't shoot quite as well, and didn't cycle in every one of my pistols, but I still tend to shoot that just because it's on sale a lot more often than any other ammo in my neighborhood.
With the budget style of ammunition, have you gone down the rabbit hole of rim thickness and weighing ammunition?
Yes, I have. I have a video where I tried that with Federal Champion, which is also another inexpensive ammo, and actually one of the worst shooting ammos in most of my rifles. So I happened, because it was really bad, at least a group really bad. I was like, it was in the back of my my gun cupboard. And so when the pandemic hit, I had a ton of it because I didn't like to shoot it. So I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. Can't be any worse than shooting it straight. So I did. One of the guys at the range had a rim thickness tool that and that allowed you to easily just slide on and determine the thickness and sort that way. And I did a test on that, and that didn't quite show much of an improvement, maybe a less than 10% improvement. It's like not worth the time to me. And then, but the weighing of the cartridges did show about a 20% improvement, which is significant. Certainly he told me that my buddy who'd lent me the tool said he found that to be the case as well for him. But the problem, or the issue, is that if you do spend the time and money to buy match grade ammo, or like premium ammo like Center X or something, the improvement in weighing it goes down because they've already pre-sorted everything. So it really makes a bigger improvement on really crappy ammo is what I've discovered.
Yeah, it's amazing the difference that some of the ammunition had. Even some of the match grade ammunition, some of the guys, they're fanatical about weighing it, and they swear by it, black and blue. If you don't weigh it, you are wrong. And they've discovered some interesting facts, like even Ely match R50s. We've just, luckily, we're in Cairns. We've now got a couple of boxes of Center X, and the gun shop is actually rationing everybody to have one brick per person. But even Center X, they're finding a little bit of inconsistencies. And one of the guys at the range was telling me, I don't want to say his name, but one of the guys is currently overseas and doing some shooting and representing Australia and stuff like that. And he went to the Ely factory, and what he had noticed is that when the boxes come off the line, if the boxes are missing any ammunition, there's a lady sitting there literally with just a box just full of just random bullets and just boom, 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 filling in the gaps that was missed by the machine. So I don't know whether this is just a story or something like that, but I don't know. Like it's kind of crazy to think that if that's the quality control of something like Ely, I'd be asking some questions, and that's why I'm thinking, bringing back the practice of weighing the ammunition is going to capture those, because especially in Ely, there is a spread of the weights. Not much, but you might go from 50.1 up to about 50.6, but that can make a bit of variance, and like if you can weigh and sort them, you might be able to capture those stray ones. And I don't know if it's just a story floating around, but
I believe it. it's not beyond my imagination, having seen some assembly lines for when I would do some product tours, not necessarily for ammo, because I've never actually been at an ammo factory, but I've been at factories for other products in my old day job. So yeah, there is always that possibility that they have to do some last minute things. So I got to wonder though, if they are at the factory, those spare that woman who's putting in those missing bullets, those would probably still come from maybe the same batch, wouldn't you think?
Oh, who knows? It
Yeah.
could be different batch, could be different machine, could be different dates. There's probably,
Oh, true.
there's that many different variables. And I think, don't quote me on this, but this is all what I've been told. They do 250,000 bullets manufacturing, and then they do a test. They do a test shoot with it. If it's still shooting well, they run the machine again. If it doesn't look good, then they go through, fix the machine, or change machines to then continue manufacturing. Again, this is just what I've been told, secondhand information. So
that sounds about right.
Yeah.
But so to your point, it does make absolute sense to, if you are competing, if you are going to an actual match, to why not? If you're finding you've got some unexpected or inexplicable flyers, then yeah, sure, weigh your ammo before doing the match. But I don't have the time to do it for practices or just going to the range.
No, that's exactly right. TJ, if you coat cheap ammo in inox, let it dry, it improves the groups.
Interesting.
Can you tell us more about that, TJ? That's interesting. I haven't heard of that one before. Have you heard of any of that? Anything like that?
No. Though I suppose that's the reason why a lot of, well, I mean, I'd have to ask some of the folks in the ammo industry. Is the tradition of putting wax on rimfire, is that for accuracy or is it that for corrosion?
Because I know once the wax dries, that can cause problems, but I never heard of putting it back on.
Yeah, but if it works for you, dude, yeah, go for it. I'd be willing to try it.
Yeah, TJ, give us some more information about that. What does he say? He goes, it imitates the wax of expensive ammo. Yeah, right.
I'd have to find some lanolin though. That's what is it? Sheep oil, isn't it? I believe.
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know. The world of shooting. There's so many different variables, so many different things that people use and do. And there's no right or wrong way to go about it. You just got to find what works for you.
Absolutely.
I'm sure, the technique that you've developed and everything like that, wouldn't work for somebody else.
And everybody's got their particulars. I was catching so much crap of the other video that I posted. I hadn't posted up an ammo comparison video in a long time, just because I haven't had the time to do it and I recently did one for Aguila and CCI standard on my Ruger precision rimfire rifle, because I still haven't found an ammo that particular rifle likes the best. I think I'm narrowing it down, but I've just started doing ammo tests again. But when I started doing the ammo tests with those two ammo, you know how it is when you get to the range, you've got some things to film. And at that particular day, I was actually filming a scope, and I was just trying to economize and get everything done at the same day. So I thought, okay, I've got a little bit of extra time. I'll test out this ammo, since I brought the rifle to test the scope on. Yep. And then I realized, as putting the camera together, oh, I forgot to bring my rear bag, because I almost never bring it for when I'm filming the scopes, because there's really no need to bring my shooting bag. And I'm like, I forgot. Okay, well, let me just do it anyway, because I'm just kind of roughly testing. I'm not, I just want to see how this ammo cycles through. But then, yeah, I was able to put together a video. But then I realized, I'm gonna have to not use a bag for the other ammo, because otherwise somebody say, "Oh, that shoots better because you use a bag this time." Like, so yeah.
I guess, then we can get into the debate of front rest or bipod.
I would definitely, if you can use depending on the match rules, I would definitely go with a rest than a bipod, just because you have so much more control over adjustments, I think.
Is there any particular rest that you have used and preferred?
Not that I can name offhand. The rest that I've shot well off of is somebody else's rest.
Oh, true.
Who has way more money than I'm willing to spend.
Yeah, some of those top rests, you nearly need to mortgage your house.
Yeah, some of the rests I've shot off of are way more expensive than all of my rifles put together. So
yeah, like the Seb Neo X's and stuff like that. I'm not sure in conversion, but about $3,500-4,000 for a rest. That's nearly half the cost of a decent rifle or a scope. Like in your video, you did a review on the March scopes, and obviously they're one of the best of the best, and that's another piece of equipment that you have to sell your house for.
Oh yeah, that's one of the reasons why when I did go to attend my first proper Benchrest and F-class match last month, and so I got to shoot some of that expensive kit. And they were, of course, encouraging me, come back and shoot. And I realized, no, if I start coming back, it's going to be this huge money suck. Yeah,
it is. It's that rabbit hole that you got to go down. You're like, oh, maybe that little bit extra scope will, improve my quality. Will, getting this new rest, will that do this? And it just keeps going and going and going. And then you get in trouble by your wife.
Yes, absolutely.
G'day Nibs, how are you? Walnut and Steel. Like I love his videos. They're really fascinating. Some of the old school rifles and everything that he does on his channel.
I gotta check it out.
Yeah, like he shoots a lot of the older rifles and really fascinating stuff of what he's doing on his channel. So it's really, really good. Like, what would you prefer, as far as equipment? Would you prefer more of the lower class, middle class, or high end sort of equipment? And what would you recommend towards beginners?
I would recommend to beginners to do a lot of research and try to borrow or try out everyone's guns at the range. And I remember watching your the most recent video that you posted about your first time at the range. For most folks, if you haven't gone to shoot or at least haven't shot often, you'll be surprised at how friendly folks are at the range, and they're really most of them are actually quite happy if you show an interest to encourage you. They'll just about every time I'm at the range, or someone says, "Hey, you want to try my gun out?" If I'm curious and I'd ask them about it. Oftentimes they'll say, "Hey, shoot it, try it out," and they actually want me to. So I got a chance to try out a number of guns before I bought them, and it's really good. And there are some rifles that just speak to you more than others when you shoot them. Sometimes it's the action, how smooth it is. That's the reason why I bought my CZ was the first bolt action rifle that I bought. I just thought that the action was just so smooth. And there's a lot of other brands out there that have probably equally as smooth of an action. To be fair. But sometimes it's best to try before you buy if you can, and if you have the means, get the more expensive gun. But don't feel like you have to mortgage your house, as you said, to get into this hobby.
No, that's exactly right. People are more than happy. Like if anybody comes along and they're like, hey, we like your Seiko, or we like this or like that. I'm like, yeah, go for it. Here's a box of ammunition and have fun. Like get involved with it. And what you said is the exact truth. I've experienced that myself. First time going to the range. Even now, like still some of the guys, I'm like, hey, that's a really cool piece of equipment. Can I have a try of it? And like my front rest, that's the only reason why I purchased it, because I wanted to try it before I buy it. And that is that's one thing that I love about the shooting community. Everybody's so welcoming, friendly. And as I said in the video, it's not just in person; it's also here on YouTube as well. Like look at everybody coming in the comments and chatting, and nobody's ever said anything bad. Everybody is warm and welcoming and friendly. So I just love it. I just love everything about it.
Yeah, no, to be fair, people also talk shit all the time among each other in terms of shooters. So
especially Joe.
Yeah, yes. That's a whole nother level. That's a whole nother level. But so if you can't afford an expensive gun, don't feel like that. No, I've yet to meet somebody who honestly treated anybody like a second class citizen for having, let's say, a high point, which is one of the cheapest pistols and cheapest rifle carbines you could buy or whatever. I started off shooting a Marlin, a used Marlin rimfire rifle, which was not originally purchased at Sears and Roebuck. It was it's as cheap and mass market as you could get in the United States.
Yeah.
And but it's not a bougie high tier rifle. It works, but it's good because you learn the basics, you get to shoot. And if you find that you want to get into competition and you find that whatever gear you have isn't quite competitive, then you can do what you can, either improving the parts of your particular rifle or buying a more expensive rifle that has already a lot of the upgrades in it. Then you could get into it. But most people just shoot targets or to have fun, and that's the reason I'm still doing it.
Exactly right. Like that's one of the biggest fears, I guess, is everybody thinks that they need to have the most expensive or the best of the best. Nah, we want people to come.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not sure whether over there, but most of the guys that go to Benchrest shooting are of the older side of the age group, and it does worry me a little bit as far as everything. And like I just wanted to share this as well. This is my first rifle, was a Anschutz 64.
Oh, that's nice.
And as I said in the video, like that was my first buy tripod and like a bit of a grip. And you start off this is where you start, like just go to the range and have a go. Like it's going to take a long time to develop your style and develop everything. But like this rifle bought secondhand from one of the guys at the club. It was about $700, I think I paid. So definitely nothing expensive. I was able to go to the club every single week and participate in it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, go. I just had a thought, but go ahead. I'd love to see.
So that's pretty much my point. Like it doesn't matter of what you have, just go to the club and enjoy.
The one thing you pointed out is that if you do go shooting, especially one of the reasons you should join a club is that almost always there'll be an older shooter out there who has an extra gun, or their maybe the gun that they used to shoot a lot before they bought or got another gun, and that became their favorite. But it's just been sitting in their safe or their closet for months or even years now. But it's still a darn good gun to shoot. So there are oftentimes, and once they find out that you need a gun, it's like, hey, I got one. And what you end up getting is a very good price, like you did, for a very good gun. And they're more than happy because that gun that wasn't getting love sitting in storage is now getting use. So it's a win-win.
Exactly right. And that's pretty much the story, what happened to the nutshell. Like when I first was going to the range, I was using, because the club had a couple of rifles, the CZ 457, and they had actually a Benchrest gun. But it's sort of, because I was going every single week, they're like, okay, we can see that you're now serious and you want to get involved with the sport. So one of the guys said, look, we can offer you a rifle. Let's go through the process and get you all set up. So, and even now, like I actually take that rifle with me. I put it in the car and take it with me even if it just sits in the car, like I've got a spare rifle, because people come to the range and they're like, oh, like they might come with their brother or boyfriend or whatever, and they're like, oh, we want to try, but there might not be enough rifles. I'm like, oh, here you go, here, have a crack on this one. So I always try to bring a couple
That's
of them.
great. Yeah.
And most of the other guys do. Always everybody brings a little bit of extra equipment for that time. And look, it's not all the time, but people, maybe a handful of times a year that we might use it. But that's the thing, we want people to have a go. And so I guess the whole point is, don't be afraid to go to a gun club. Don't be afraid to get involved with this. Get involved with the sport.
Oh yeah, they're more than happy to. They love to see. We all love to see new faces at the range. I wish we could, and I really want to encourage everybody to think of, if they're already a member of a club or go to a range regularly, see ways to invite new shooters. Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of the clubs have like a free day or like an open day where you can come along. It is a bit challenging with the stigma with shooting. Here in Australia, everybody can be a little bit anti-gun as well, so it is a little bit hard to get the word out, because a lot of the clubs as well, they want to have that accessibility, but they don't want to advertise, because advertising, it can come along a lot of trolls as well. So they got to be very, very careful with what you post on social media and stuff like that.
They even recently passed a law, I think it was 2 years ago in California, that you can't advertise anymore. So that there was a bit of a kerfuffle or concern about advertising, or at least posting up classes for Boy Scouts because you could get your badge in marksmanship, but we weren't even sure if we could post up that we were having that class for other Boy Scout troops to come, because we didn't want to run afoul of the law. But yeah, well, I totally understand the restrictions. Yeah.
Cowboy, he likes expensive guns, but he like the lesser expensive guns, so he can have more of them. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, Walnut. Yeah, he shoots his 1972 and shoots. As I said, he's got some really nice rifles over there.
Yeah, I'd like to get it on shoots one of these days.
Yeah, look, they're test of time.
I forgot. Is it the Winchester used to actually import on shoots, and rebranded as Winchesters back in the day? I think I'd read somewhere.
I'm not sure, but sounds logical. TJ, yeah, he has come and try days and ladies' day at the range all the time. Yeah, that's the TJ. I'm pretty sure you're Aussie from memory. But yeah, a lot of those come and try days we do here. Especially with a lot of our memberships and license requirements, you have to be a part of a club anyway. I just wish some of the rules I don't agree with, but to get a category A and B license, you have to be technically a member of the club, but you don't actually have to go to the club to participate. So if you pay your membership, you get your license as a club affiliate as a reasonable reason to own a license. Handguns are different. You need to go to the club and have, I think it's 5 compulsory shoots per year, and be a part of that club. But rifles, there is no minimum shoot requirements. The people that go to the club are just there for the love and the enjoyment. I think in our club, I'd like to say there's probably over 2,000 members in our local club.
That's awesome.
But that's what I'm saying. But at our range days, we only get roughly around about 14 or 15 people every week, simply because there's no requirement for them to come. They simply just sign up, pay their membership just for the purpose of having a firearm. Sometimes I wish they would make it a little bit more, you'd actually have to go to a club and use the rifle for its intended purpose. I don't know, like we can get into that sort of topic and debate that all day, but
now is there a requirement that you have? So you're saying that for the rifle, there's no requirement that you have to sort of keep current, therefore encourage folks to come and show their face at the range once in a while.
Yeah, correct. You only pay your yearly fee, and they send you a little card in the mail saying congratulations, you're now a member. That's it. Yeah, there's no reason to keep going. So, yeah, he's in South Australia, so I'm assuming they'd have the similar sort of rules and regulations as what we do here in Queensland, and I'm assuming that probably TJ is a member of the SSAA as well, Sporting Shooters Association of Australia. So many different things. Oh, Nibsy's busy sharpening his knife. I'm glad you could join us and do a bit of sharpening. He's got a 68 Savage Ant shoots and a Model 64.
Yeah, I saw some of the other folks like Kentucky Rimfire and Cyclops Joe correcting me. It was Savage that imported the on-shoots, not Winchester.
Kenny, g'day, Kenny. Thanks for stopping in. Good to see you, mate. Kenny, I did send you an email, mate. Hopefully get to hear from you soon. What type of rifles do you have, Tom?
I shoot primarily, well, for the rimfire, I've got the Marlin or the Glenfield 60. So specifically, that's the Sears and Roebuck's model of the rifle that they made specifically for Sears and Roebuck. And then that was my first rifle when I was a kid, and then got a Ruger 1022 just because everybody else had one. And I shoot primarily at the range, my CZ457 and a Ruger Precision Rimfire, depending on which scope has a zeroed out. Which rifle has a zeroed out scope at the time, because I sort of trade in between the two when I have to test out the for videos. But I oftentimes don't get a chance to zero out properly for the particular ammo that I'm using for a match. So then I always try to keep one that I know that I could just grab and go to the match, and keep the other one for throwing scopes onto for reviews.
Yeah, that's a big thing that catches me out all the time. You might change a scope over, and then you forget to zero it, and you put your first shot, and you're like, "Oh, please don't hit the target! Please don't hit the target!"
That plagued me the last time I was doing a falling plates match. Is that I forgot I had swapped out the scope, an LPVO that I was reviewing, and I was way off in the first round of that match because I had not properly tightened down the base.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, why is it so off? And then like, dunk, 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 dunk. Okay.
Yeah, massive. Like if you have a loose scope rings, the difference is massive. Like it actually happened to me the other day. Like sighted in this rifle, traveled home, went to the range again. I'm like, why is this thing shooting 3 inches to the right?
Yeah, I saw that video. You mentioned that. Yeah, just
like, why? It's just frustrating. So then you re-zero it again. I'm like, okay, this is cool. And then it just kept playing on my mind, going, no, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with this thing. And
it's so funny. That's like the last thing that ever comes to your mind. It's like, is there something wrong with this ammo? Is there something wrong with my bipod or whatever? But it's like, it always ends up the last thing I check is the scope ring. It's like, oh, of course, duh.
That's the part of competing, and that's the thing that I enjoy the most. Is it's just constant. It never ends. And I guess one of my favorite techniques of zeroing a scope, where we shoot, is we don't actually have grass. It's all just dirt. I like just to shoot at a rock, like aim somewhere near the target, find a rock, and obviously back the zoom out a little bit, because the 40 power, you just got to back it out so you can see where your shot lands. But I like to shoot a rock, and obviously with the dirt, you can see exactly where it lands, and it's just a real quick boop down onto paper. Do those last couple of fine adjustments, and then you're good to go.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah.
That technique is come in handy many times, and it's not against the rules or anything against the competition. I just want to make sure that I don't actually hit my scoring target. Because you only have one. If on your first sighter, and if your round lands into your scoring target, you can let the RO know. But you want to make sure that you've got your scope dialed in.
Absolutely. And you want to make sure that you're shooting on your target as opposed to your neighbors.
Oh, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
It happens nearly every single match. I'm like, it's big number 4. Like, like that's my lane. You're number 5.
But it's always, there was that's a thing. It happened to me. It happened to be in the first match. It was the guy in the next lane over, but I could totally see, like, you're dialed in, and you depending on where the marker is for your particular target, the number above or below your paper. But if their scope is dialed in really high, they don't even see the number of the lane. So
that's exactly right. What do we got? We got everybody in the comments have been talking about some triggers. So Savage Andshoot 64 match. It has a nice trigger. Well, the best Anshoots trigger, but really nice nonetheless. Oh, Kenny, he's never 64. Oh, might have been a bit of controversy in the comments going on here. Have you had a chance to have a look at, triggers and do a bit of reviews on them?
I haven't done a lot of upgrading of my rifles. Part of it is it was a conscious choice on my part, because I thought it would be better for my audience. Because if I started putting upgrade triggers and comparing, say, ammo or whatever, then people would say, well, that's how it shoots with your gun. But I try to keep out all my rifles as close to factory as I can. But where I have an adjustable trigger, I will adjust it down to as light as I can.
Yeah, I'm lucky that a couple. My Seiko has had. I don't know what triggers in it, but I know the previous owner has adjusted it, and it's breaks off super crisp. It is a little bit heavier than the Anshoots that I had, but it's
how heavy is it? Have you measured it?
I've never tested it. No, I don't know. I couldn't tell you how the way to explain it, but it is a little bit heavier. Recently, I'm about to do a new video, but I have got a new rifle, and it's got a Bix and Andy trigger in it, and literally you can just touch it with your fingernail, and it goes off. There was a
couple of guys in the clubs have pistols like that, and it's also kind of scary.
yeah, and like the trigger in that new one is scary light, but one of the other guys at the club, his trigger is even lighter. I swear you could just go, and it'll go off.
You look at it funny.
That's exactly right. It gets to the point where it does become, where do you stop? Where does it become dangerous? I love saying one of the guys at the range stories, but they're always fascinating. Every now and again you get random police inspections where they come through and look at the rifles and check your paperwork and make sure that you're doing everything correctly. Anyway, long story short, they got onto this rifle now, inspecting the trigger, and it was one of these super light triggers, and they said that trigger is far too dangerous, and they requested that he take that gun back to the gun shop to get it fixed. And he kept trying to explain to the officer, saying, this is not a hunting rifle. This is actually a proper, competition rifle. This is what they do. And when you get into that sort of world, a lot of police officers have never experienced that.
Oh, wow.
And they have that preconceived notion that what they're used to in their handguns or what they've done in their service rifles, that's the way it should be, where they've never actually experienced a proper competition rifle. And, they demanded that to change that. So anyway, he had to go back to the gunsmith and get the paperwork and submitted it to the police, and they were happy. So then he took the rifle back into the gunsmith, and they changed it back. So because
I'm sorry he had to go through that.
Yeah.
So Alan, I would love to do this again, but I've got church duties this evening actually here, and I'm in the choir, so I just got the signal that I have to go get my guitar together and head out and take the family to church. Yeah, we go.
I can hear you in trouble. So, Tom, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me. Everybody that has come onto the stream as well, I really do appreciate it. Hopefully in a few weeks' time, Kenny, hopefully can come along or everything like that. And a little bit later on, towards the end of December, I'm actually hoping to do a bit of a multi-stream, like with yourself and a few other people that I want to approach, and have like a bit of an end of year sort of a stream and celebrate and talk about all things shooting and what happened with our channels, and just a bit of a fun way to end the year.
That would be great. Yeah. And I want to thank you again for inviting me on. And if for those of you, I've got, I'm sure Alan will post up some links with this video, but you could always find me at moondogindustries.com. And I have a live stream every Wednesday afternoon, 3 p.m. Pacific time and 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Anyway,
Yes.
Thank you again, Alan.
No worries. Thank you. All right. Bye, everyone.
Cheers.